Hey guys, it's Tamira Sams, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about wildfires and the effects that wildfires have on our ecosystem and agriculture. So to start off with, I just want to discuss a little bit of background information to help you understand the topic a little better. So the definition of a wildfire is a fire that is deemed uncontrollable, and these are fires that ignite in forests, grasslands, savannas, ecosystems, you name it, a fire can basically happen there. There are three main types of fires. There's a ground fire, a surface fire, and a crown fire. A ground fire is a fire that ignites in the thick part of the soil, and these are the fires that usually last months at a time. A surface fire is a fire that starts with the dead vegetation and leaves that are kind of like on the surface of the soil. And the last one is a crown fire, and these happen in the high parts of trees and shrubs. So the next thing I kind of want to discuss is kind of like why these fires happen. So an interesting fact is that 90% of wildfires are actually man-made. These come from recklessness of discarded cigarettes, campfires being left unattended, or even the intentional acts of arson. I don't know if you guys ever heard of the 2018 couple that had a gender reveal out in California, and they decided to blow something up and it would have shown the color either pink or blue. Well, while showing the color blue, the ground beneath actually caught on fire and ended up burning 47,000 acres of land, and it cost the couple over $8 million in damages. So accidents happen, but we are part of the main reasons why wildfires do happen. And the remaining 10% comes from lava and volcanoes. And I know what you're thinking. Volcanoes really don't affect us because we're on the East Coast, or you don't really think there's that many volcanoes in the United States, which there's not. But the United States is a part of a connection of continents that have volcanoes called the Ring of Fire. I'm going to include a picture of the Ring of Fire right here so you can see what I'm talking about. But basically, if you were to lay the world flat, minus some other countries like things to the east of us, like Africa and the UK and stuff like that, doesn't count. But the other sides that are like more to the west, there is a ring that connects the continents where there are volcanoes that lie on their coast. So here's a picture of that. How long a wildfire actually burns is up to the weather conditions of the place and site where the fire is actually happening. So, if it's hot and it's dry, the fire will tend to burn longer than if it's cold and rainy. So, the weather has a lot to do with how long it'll burn, how fast it'll burn, how much damage is done in that time, along with the effects of trying to let the fire out, which there are ways that you can put wildfires out, but they're not like the easiest ways. There's this thing called back burning, which is where firefighters and people of emergency personnel will try to basically fight fire with fire. They'll take a controlled fire and try to put out that fire, the wildfire with the controlled fire, or try to at least stop it. And so they do that. And then I wanted to discuss a few numbers so you could see the effects and actually kind of like visualize how much wildfires actually happen. In 2019, there were 50,477 wildfires that took place. But that's actually considerably good to 2018 because there were 58,083 fires that took place. And to help you kind of visualize it, in 2019, there were 4.7 million acres burned compared to 8.8 million acres burned in 2018. So the next thing I kind of want to jump to is to help you understand what an ecosystem is and what agriculture is. So an ecosystem is a large community of living organisms in a particular area. And then agriculture is the art and science behind growing crops and raising livestock and basically farming. So, yes, wildfires can be deadly to plants and animals and humans and uh, basically anything in their path because they can destroy a lot of things. But there are ecosystems that actually rely on fire. And not only that, there are fire dependent plants and ecosystems, which means the ecosystems need the fire and heat to maintain function. And then there's fire adapted, which they have the power to evolve and adapt to their new ecosystem if it's burned. Something that I found interesting when I was researching this topic is that fires can actually act as a catalyst and be helpful because fires can promote healthy relationships. They can get rid of some debris, and they are, like I said, essential to some plant species. Two plant species that I wanted to mention that they are essential to are the chaparral plants and scrub oak plants. And these plants actually need fires for their seeds to generate and to be released. So they depend heavily on fires to complete their life cycle. And plants that are fire adapted just have parts of them that kind of act as a protectant. Some of them have dead leaves at the bottom of the plants that act as insulation, and then some have moist tissues that will act as insulation and protection from heat and kind of like give it a resistance. But I do want to mention that if a fire does burn for too long, an ecosystem cannot recover. So the longer a fire burns, the more damage it does. The percentage of the ecosystem going back to its full potential actually does decrease. And there was a study done that shows no regrowth or less regrowth in some sites where fires have actually taken place. So now I want to jump to agriculture part of it. So when it comes to wildfires in agriculture, most people look at it as a pretty deadly and dangerous thing. Not only that, but they consider them highly destructive. Because like I mentioned earlier, fires have the power to destroy everything in their paths. So it can damage crops and soil. It can harm the livestock. Not only that, it's putting the workers at risk. The ash and chemicals used to put a fire out and the smoke from a fire can negatively affect air quality, which affects other plants, and it can affect water quality as well if when it comes to the chemicals and runoff, and it can run to a stream and that those chemicals get in the water, and it's just overall not a good thing when it comes to agriculture. Because when you think about it, you have to think about this isn't like a little farm with like, you know, a house with a little farm on the back. They've got a few horses. This is like thousands of acres of land or hundreds of acres of land that is growing grains, corn, essential things that we need. And within a matter of time, all of that can be gone. Not only that, but it takes mills with them. It can take the big towers. It destroys everything. So for agriculture, it is looked at as a pretty negative thing, and there's not much positive to it. So I think when discussing this topic, you kind of have to weigh out the option. Like there are pros and there are cons to wildfires. You know, I mentioned some of the pros are it does give way for new life to grow. Some plants actually need it. It promotes healthy relationships. Some animals are able to come back to their land and area days after wildfires, and some of them will move completely. Some wildfires are so dangerous that they can make a species nearly go extinct. You know, with the 2019 Australian bushfires, we saw horrendous pictures of animals being burned and homes being burned, and people, their whole life is gone in such an instant because of this gigantic fire. And so when you're discussing this topic, it is kind of hard to decide which side to weigh on. But I think the human part of us is like, no, that's bad. But the science of it is that sometimes fires are good. And actually, some scientists and emergency personnel and other people that are higher up actually use fires to get rid of old debris and make way for new plants and to clear an area so that new trees can be grown and stuff like that. So it's not always negative, but like I said, it's kind of one of those things that you just have to weigh out. And so I'm going to include a couple of pictures that are not too graphic of wildfires so you can see how big these fires actually burn, how dangerous they can be. But not only that, I want to show like positive pictures too of animals coming back to their land and everything like that. So I hope I was able to help you guys understand wildfires a little bit better and understand how it can affect us both positively and negatively. So thank you.